let's see, while animating, we should focus completely on camera, or we should make animation look good from all perspective too. It depends on the animation. If you're doing a more realistic animation, it should look good. So let me put it this way, regardless of animation, whether it's game animation, cartoony animation, film animation, the camera that is most important is the shot camera, the one that the audience will see. That is 100% the most important. It has to look good from that. Now, the amount that it has to look good in the other views really depends on what you're animating. If you're animating a cartoony shot where everything is stretching and breaking and whatnot, yeah, you don't really have to worry about poses always looking good in the perspective view, because they're not. For example, maybe I'm going to have this shot and I really want to push the exaggeration of the hand reaching for the camera. So I might just like pull this arm forward here. And actually that's as much as it's going to stretch there. But then I can just kind of line this up so that the hand and the arm look about the proper length. So something like that. Just to get that hand a little bit bigger on screen. I might even cheat the hand and scale it up a little bit. So on this one pose, we get something like that. So from this view, you don't really notice that the arm is 5 times longer than it should be. But it's fine. So yeah, that's not a problem. For more realistic shots, you're going to do that less. Poses will tend to look better from all angles. Not ideal. You don't have to worry about the silhouette and everything from every single shot, but if you try to keep it looking good from as many angles as possible, it makes it so that if you do have a change, it still looks good. So, do I have this open here? No, not that one. This one. So this was a pose test I was doing for the new Aang rig that got released not too long ago. And by posing something so that it looks good from all angles, you just save yourself time if ever the camera has to change or you have to tweak the shot a little bit. If you're constantly cheating for no reason, all you're doing is making more work for yourself. There should be a reason why you want to cheat, to push a specific effect or push a specific feel to the shot. If you're just doing it for doing it, then to me that's lazy posing. So you will do it a lot less there. So just kind of as an example here, we have this pose here that I did on stream a while back. And if I change my camera angle here, so take this camera and there we go, rotate it. Because I made sure to pose it from every angle and make sure that the line of action works from any angle, if I move this and suddenly, oh, we need a back view of the character, it works. I might have to change some things. I'd change a silhouette, make sure that things are more ideal for that one pose. But regardless of where I move this, it's going to look decent. Not perfect, especially the face. The face is going to look very weird depending on the angle. But it doesn't have to look perfect. It's just like, it's not broken where one arm is bent the wrong way if you don't have a reason to do it. Now, if you're animating something that's supposed to be on screen in a 3D theater, so where you put 3D glasses on, you will cheat a lot less. You can still get away with it, but you're going to do it a whole lot less because 3D glasses make it easier to see if something is cheated and the perspective is not right. And then if you're working for games, it depends on the game. If you're working on something like League of Legends where the camera is stationary, just top down, you can cheat a lot. They cheat a lot in that game to exaggerate certain motions based on that camera angle. But if you have a game where you can, as a player, can move the camera at all angles, there's no way you're cheating because the player at any time could rotate the camera and you're going to see the mistake. You're going to see that arm twisted in the wrong way. You need to animate it so that it looks good from every angle. Ideally, the main angle, which would usually be behind the player, or sorry, behind the character as you're walking forward, that'll be the one that looks the best, but everything else still has to look good. So you get different levels of how much you get to cheat depending on the project. It also depends on the lighting. If you cheat an arm forward and the shadow that's being cast, so maybe I cheat the arm forward and it's 5 times its length here, but you don't notice it. But you see the shadow of the arm on the background and you can see how long it is there. You're not cheating there. You're going to have to try to find another way of doing that. So it really just depends. If you're first learning, I highly recommend avoiding cheating as much as you can unless there's a very specific reason for it, because it's just good practice to learn how to pose things and get the actual physical motion working first, the way it would happen in real life. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question. So let's say if it's a game and you're animating locomotion, make it the most awesome from the angle it's going to be seen the most, but all angles have to work. Exactly. I think you should make it look good from all perspectives because we are probably not going to set up camera. Someone else is going to. Well, the thing is, typically, if you're animating something like for film, you will have the camera that the final camera before animating it. You will almost never get a scene and start animating it and then they'll pick the camera angle from there. Very rarely does that ever happen, and it only happens for a very specific reason. So as we animate, we are given a layout file, a scene that is pretty much set up for us, where here's our camera angle, here's the character, they have to move through the scene in this direction. Okay, you've got your camera, perfect. You want to animate to that. But sometimes it's not the final camera. And what I mean by this is, if ever you've seen Surf's Up, it's the movie with the penguins surfing. This was one of the first movies that did this, that I know of. What they did in the scene is that they gave all the animators their layout files. The animators animated the scene, and then what they would do is, basically they had a camera that the cameraman could use. They actually got a cameraman that they would look through, and you could think of it like a VR headset nowadays, and they would look in the scene and they would see the characters walking by, the penguins walking in the scene, and they would film them as if they were a real camera crew filming the scene. And that's what gave that film that kind of camera crew following people around feel, is that they literally did that. They had a camera guy follow the penguins around after the scene was animated, still using the main layout that they had before. So they're not changing it and going into a totally different angle, but using it to enhance the scene afterwards, which means that you can't cheat the animation a crazy amount if suddenly you're going to have a camera guy moving around and potentially changing the angles slightly. So they were given the main angle to work with. They made sure it worked from there. Camera person comes in, and then they tweak the animation afterwards to make it ideal for that specific shot. So there's a lot of different ways you can do that. And sometimes they'll do that whole camera motion while it's still in previs, so that you don't have to animate it twice. It really depends. But normally you will have a camera angle. Even in a video game, you're going to be told, okay, this has to be from an isometric top-down view. This has to be from the back view. This is a 2D side scroller. There you go. So you know what camera angle you're working with when you start a scene. Now, with all of that said, don't be tied down to a camera view. So for example, here on this character, focus on the face here, I posed the face based on this camera angle right here, trying to get this as appealing as possible. If you move the camera in different directions, that face can start to look a little weird, especially the mouth. And this is especially true for more exaggerated expressions. So Let's open this one here. As you start exaggerating facial poses especially, you typically want to try and push the facial pose to be as appealing as possible from that specific camera view. Now this depends on, again, the stylistic choice of the film. Sometimes it's going to be very basic and very close to normal, so I make a smile and it looks good just like a normal smile will. But even if you think about it, like if I smile like this and turn my head this way, okay, that smile looks pretty good there. But if I turn my head this way, that doesn't really look like a smile, does it? I haven't changed it. I'm just doing this, and now it just looks like I'm squinting, like I'm not happy, and there's kind of a snarl kind of look to it versus this where it's smiling. That the same thing happens in real life. A facial pose and even an actual full body pose is not always going to look good from all angles. So don't worry too much about it. And depending on the style, you can really start pushing things to exaggerate and kind of break the face in a lot of ways. So for example, here's just a simple smile. Character's smiling. It looks pretty good from this angle here. If I turn the camera here, look at the mouth. See how it's just crunched up and like imploded in on itself? Yeah, that's not great. But that's fine, because it looks good from here. I made sure to pose the mouth so that it looked as appealing as possible from the front view, or from the camera view, I should say. This doesn't matter that much, as long as the audience doesn't see it. Now, the problem with doing a whole pose where you're cheating is that, like, if you look at this pose, it looks good from pretty much any angle. The line of action of the body, all of that. I didn't cheat it pretty much for the rest of the pose. The reason for that is shadows, and so when you do lighting and stuff, but also if I need to make a big change and adjust the camera, maybe move it here a little bit, it's not hard to just change the mouth pose and tweak it a little bit. But if I have to suddenly repose the entire body, that changes everything. I have to change the hips, which means I have to change the spine, which means I have to change the arms, the neck, the head, the face. Everything changes. So if you get the body at least close enough, if you have to make changes later on, it's going to be small changes versus suddenly having to reanimate or redo a whole bunch of stuff.